what you just listed, these are things that you were going to do in the future or things that you already have in place? Because this survey was published internally 2 years ago.
Yeah, and we've done many things, of course, since then, which is precisely why we do the research. And
have you already implemented what you just listed, or is that going to happen in the future? Things like nudging children away from harmful content.
No, I was answering a question because you asked me what we're going to do. Those are our future plans.
Okay.
What we've done since that research, of course, we've constantly introduced new tools, for instance, so that people can hide certain words, can make sure that they're not connected with people who they don't want to be connected with, to just limit their contact with people who they don't want to be connected to. We now provide automatic prompts where someone's literally, if someone's, for instance, looking at material relating to eating disorders, they will get prompts on their feeds to guide them towards helpful information, resources from experts and specialist organizations who can help them. This is obviously a journey. We're all on this journey. The fact that, over the last 10, 15 years, millions of youngsters are now online in a way that they were not before means we all face this challenge. We face this challenge together. We have no incentive other than trying to make that experience as positive and safe as possible.
Well, Frances Haugen says your incentive is profit. Your bottom line, and continuing to line the pockets of the people who work there. What's your response to that?
Well, I don't think a company that only places, profit above everything else would do what we've done. We've invested over the last several years $13 billion in this kind of work, in making sure that our platform is safe to use. $13 billion, to put that in context, is more than the total revenue of Twitter over the last 4 years. We now have 40,000 people, that's more than twice the number of staffers working on Capitol Hill who work on these issues. So we do world-beating research to understand exactly the interaction, the complex interaction between individuals, their individual circumstances of their lives, and the use of social media. And we are constantly iterating in order to improve our products. As I say, we cannot with a wave of the wand make everyone's life perfect. What we can do is improve our products so that our products are as safe and as enjoyable to use wherever we can improve them.
And I want to talk about some potential solutions in a moment. But first, I have to ask, Frances Haugen is now poised to meet with the January 6th committee. I understand you have said that only those who broke the law in and around January 6th are to blame for the insurrection. But just a simple yes or no. Did Facebook's algorithms amplify or spread pro-insurrection voices ahead of January 6th?
Let me be clear, because there's been a lot of, I think, somewhat misleading discussion about what the algorithms do. And they're algorithms, there's hundreds, thousands of them in Facebook, as much as there are in many online companies. But what the ranking algorithms do, in other words, that's the crucial algorithms that help decide what you see more prominently on your news feed on Facebook than other pieces of content. If you removed the algorithms, which is, I think, Frances Haugen's one of her central recommendations, the first thing that would happen is that people would see more, not less, hate speech, more, not less, misinformation. Because these algorithms are designed precisely to work almost like giant spam filters to identify and deprecate bad content. And, I really do think we should remember that technology, of course it has downsides, but it also has very powerful positive effects.
But my question is specifically about January 6th. Did the algorithms that are in place amplify pro-insurrection voices ahead of January 6th? Yes or no?
Look, given we have thousands of algorithms and you have millions of people using this, I can't give you a yes or no answer to the individual personalized feeds that each person uses. We cooperate with law enforcement, of course, to give them content that might have shown up on our platform. But let's be clear, of course, January the 6th, the responsibility for that is for the people who broke the law, who inflicted the violence, who aided and abetted them, who encouraged them, both in politics and in the media.
Yeah, and I get that, and I don't think anybody is saying anything different, but is it a problem that Facebook, that you're not really sure if your platform allowed it to fester and amplify what ended up as this huge attack?
What I was simply saying is that the algorithm, the whole point, of course, of Facebook is that each person's news feed is individual to them. It's like a sort of individual fingerprint, and that's basically determined by the interaction of your choices, your friends, your family, the groups you choose to be part of, and those ranking algorithms that I referred to earlier. So I can't give a sort of generic answer to each person's individual feeds. What I can say is that where we see content that we think is relevant to the investigations of law enforcement, of course we cooperate with them. But if I may, if our algorithms are as sort of nefarious as some people suggest, why is it that it's precisely those systems that have succeeded to reduce hate speech, the prevalence of hate speech on our platforms, to as little as 0.05%? That means for every 10,000 bits of content, you'd only see 5 bits of hate speech. I wish we could eliminate it to 0. So I just don't. We're not going to, you know, with a third of the world's population on our platforms,
Mr.
of course
Clegg,
we're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of human nature on our platforms.
I want to get to some solutions. I know you said that in the future you are going to have a voluntary option for parents to have more control over their children on your platforms. Do you support legislation requiring parental consent for children under 16 to use social media?
Of course, if lawmakers want to set down rules for us and for TikTok and for YouTube and for Twitter about exactly how young people should operate online, we of course will abide by the law. And I think it's right that this is a subject of great bipartisan interest and discussion, because there's nothing more important to any of us than our kids. And I think, by the way, regulation will be very useful in many other areas.
Okay, so let me ask another specific question on that, because I have specifics, because I think it's important. Do you support legislation allowing regulators access to these algorithms that you've been talking about, access to Facebook algorithms, the ones that they use to amplify content to users? Should regulators have access to those algorithms?
I think broadly the answer is yes. We need greater transparency, so the systems that we have in place, as I alluded to earlier, including not only the 40,000 people we employ on this, but also the multi-billion-dollar investments we've made into algorithmic systems, machine learning systems, they should be held to account, if necessary, by regulations, so that people can match what our systems say they're supposed to do from what actually happens. As I said earlier, I don't think it's, I mean, with the best will in the world, you can't design regulation that intervenes in real time in the way that human beings interact every millisecond of the day with those multitude of algorithms. But I think in terms of transparency, of course, yes.
Okay, we're almost out of time. One last question. Do you support changing Section 230, a law that protects social media companies like Facebook from liability, in order to hold companies like yours liable for posts that get amplified due to engagement?
I do think Section 230 should be changed. I mean,
in that specific way?
A quarter of a century ago. Well, may I suggest, I think, a better way, which is that Section 230, as you know, gives online platforms protection from liability for the content that passes on their platforms. I think the way to perhaps change Section 230, my suggestion would be to make that protection which is afforded to online companies like Facebook contingent on them applying the systems and their policies as they're supposed to. And if they fail to do that, they would then have that liability protection removed. That seems to us, at least, perhaps a sensible change to consider to Section 230.
One last